the industry's role in the regulatory debate.
Welcome everyone for this conversation on the industry's role in the regulatory debate. I am happy to have my fellow panelists here who I will introduce to you. Charles Mitzi is the Chief Executive Officer of MGA. He joined this esteemed regulatory office after holding another tenure at in the public sector, the Residency Malta Agency. Janina Oprița at the other end is compliance manager at Kaizen Gaming International Limited. She is a lawyer by formation, but at Kaizen she supports compliance efforts across several jurisdictions. Next to her is Patricia Lalanda. She's a partner at Loira, an international law firm based in Spain, renowned for its expertise in the gambling industry. And next to me, Simon Planzer, a partner with Planzer Law, a Switzerland-based, highly specialized law firm providing regulatory and legal advice to stakeholders in the gambling industry. Welcome. I think we have the perfect mix to have this discussion on regulatory issues, where we have the public sector and the private sector, lawyers and compliance officers with us. So hopefully we can talk about this from various angles, where nowadays the gambling industry is facing increased scrutiny, from tighter regulations to rising taxes to shifting public attitudes in various jurisdictions across Europe, some more than others, some more favorable to the industry, some less. And the question, though, is no longer whether regulation is coming or how is the industry responding to this, not just reactively, but proactively. So in this session today, I thought we might explore how operators can go beyond box-checking compliance and engaging more with regulators to the point of shaping legislation and rebuilding trust. So without further ado, Charles, I thought you as the representative of the public sector could kickstart our conversation. What does effective collaboration with operators look like from your perspective?
First of all, thank you, Cosmina, for the invitation. I would say effective collaboration is key. It's the foundation of our day-to-day work. We need to collaborate with operators on the day-to-day issues. And I would say that this collaboration is built on three key pillars, which would be transparency, shared accountability, and proactive engagement with the operators. And I would like to give some practical examples of this. To start with, when an operator decides to apply for a gaming license, we stress a lot on transparency. Transparency is crucial for a number of things, but even for practical things. If an operator, a service provider, submitting an application in the name of an operator is not transparent, does not disclose full information, the process takes long. Because we keep asking questions, we need to make sure that when we come to a decision, we make it based on an informative decision. We need to have full information. At the same time, the MGA, the regulator, needs to be transparent as well. We need to be fair with the operators, and we need to provide regular updates. We need to explain why we are asking those questions. We need to have an open dialogue. The second point I mentioned is the shared accountability. As an MGA, we are accountable. We are accountable to fellow regulators, We have manual examinations from time to time. There are set standards which we need to meet. At the same time, the operator needs to be accountable. They need to provide full information when it comes to compliance monitoring, for example. The third pillar I mentioned is proactive engagement with regulators. We pride ourselves of having an open dialogue principle at the MGA. We regularly meet operators, and this is not just lip service. We do engage with the operators. We involve them in workshops. A case example is the ESG framework. Operators were involved from day one until we issued and designed the framework. And this is how we work. Operators are involved in everything. They are kept up to date. We hate surprises. Everyone hates surprises. And so we believe that it's only fair that operators are involved in our journey so that they are prepared for what's going to come.
You do, in Malta, you do hold quite a sizable pool of licensees who operate globally. This gives you probably one of the largest international base. How is your collaboration with other jurisdictions?
Obviously, our international footprint puts a lot of responsibility on us. We believe that we need to set standards, considering the experience and expertise we have gained over the years. And we share this experience, we share our expertise. We collaborate a lot with other regulators, constant discussions. We have MOUs set in place. We meet them even in different forums. And this helps us to share what we have learned over the years. At the same time, we're also open to new ideas as well. At times, we also benefit from such exchange of information.
I think the conversation would be best placed now if we go into trade associations, because they place a significant role on the regulatory discussion and how the regulation is shaped. And since being the main tool, I wonder, how do you see their role in the recent years? What do they do well? What can they improve? I know we discussed this in our pre-talk, especially with Patricia and Janina. So do you want to comment on that?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Sigma, for having me here today. And indeed, well, at our law firm, we helped the first trade association, the first gambling trade association, be created in 42 years ago. So it was created in 1982 after the regulation of gambling, land-based gambling, in 77. So I can say very well and in firsthand that it was born to have the primary tool to be the proper interlocutor between the private sector of gambling and, of course, the administrations. Well, in preparation for this panel, since Cosmina so organized and she sent us previously the questions, I thought that it would be a good idea to actually speak to 3 of the main associations in Spain. So the funny part here...
You were telling me that you have a lot of associations,
yes,
actually.
So that's what I was going to get to. So I chose 3 because we have over 200 associations in Spain. So the key points that I can synthesize from my conversations from the leaders of these associations, one of them is the Online Gambling Association, is that what they are doing correctly is that they are working towards being a more professionalized tool for the industry. But what we also agreed was that there are still a lot of improvements that have to be made in order to be more useful for the industry. one of the main improvements that I see that is needed, and I think it's quite obvious, is that there needs to be more unification of the message that is going from the private industry towards the regulator. If you have 200 plus associations, perhaps the message could be a little bit confusing. However, I think that what needs to be taken into account is that the main trade associations are seeking to have the personal or the issues that are pertaining to particular operators set aside, and they are willing to work thoroughly on those issues that not only serve the members of the association, but also the rest of the stakeholders, and of course the industry and the population as a whole. So more unification. Another issue that they believe that there's still room for improvement, and I obviously think the same way, is that the associations need to come up with more document-based information to help the regulators make better decisions. Obviously, regulators from all over the world have studies that they finance with public money or even private, but there's still a lack of more information, more studies, be it server-based or whatever, it's information. And once they have that information, I believe that what is very necessary is to be able to process that information. There are enough tools to process that information, but when I've spoken to a lot of regulators from all over the world, they're still lacking a lot of tools to be able to process that information. And one of the other associations, the feedback that this person gave me is that there is still a very deep need of the associations trying to give out the proper speech about this industry. There's still a lot of demonization, so it is the trade association's task to keep being in the public speech and talking about the positive externalities, not only the negative externalities, because we are undergoing a very convulsive times where there are a lot of extreme positions by the regulators. Either don't regulate. The previous panel, they were mentioning that a lot of operators are seeking very regulated markets for legal certainty, but there's also not only, I don't like to say the word over-regulation, but perhaps there's a lot of regulation right now towards the vulnerable people, and it's not very clear, for example, what is actually considered vulnerable or not, because there is still a lot of information lacking in that space. So yes, I absolutely think that they are the main tool. They all agree that they also need external support by advisors, legal advisors, financial advisors to keep their speech dynamic and up to date. And definitely they are essential for the industry, from my perspective.
And just to add to what Patricia said, I think one of the problems with trade association in general is the fact that they lack a cohesive objective. They are more reactive than trying to build things from zero in a better approach, and this shows because when you have to react to something, of course the approach is different and the means that you have at your disposal are different. But if you build something from the beginning and you use the members and their knowledge, because most associations have also international members that can bring also the knowledge that they have from other markets. Maybe other markets have seen what works in a matter or it doesn't work. And they should harvest all this knowledge and have objectives that they can go with to regulators, to legislators, and present their point of view better. It's one thing to go and have an opinion when a problem is already surfaced, and another one to do it proactive and show what is the matter, how it can be solved in a way that it's more friendly. So I do believe that trading associations should do more in the fact that they should have more of a plan, they should engage more with members, so they have a long-term strategy. And I think this would also help the regulators to have more predictability on what the trade association want to implement and what is their target, so they can align better.
Thank you both. You touched upon various points, and I think that goes into what Simon wanted to speak about. So Simon, acting instead of talking.
Yes, thank you. I do think that depending on the trade association, of course, more acting instead of talking is required. What I mean by that is often an association can get absorbed with internal discussions, lengthy discussions, instead of actually external actions. And I've observed 2 points I would actually mention why this can happen, why an association can be slowed down. One is de facto unanimity requirement. So imagine a discussion at association level and many members welcome a new initiative, and it only takes one member, one person to raise the hand and say, I'm not sure about this, can we postpone this item to the next meeting? And you will see slowly that item may move away from the agenda, whereas actually a majority would have favored it. So these dynamics, I think, somehow have to be overcome, or it can paralyze an association or the effectiveness of which. The second point is it's worthwhile looking who is sitting on the association, who is representing the gaming companies. Is it somebody very senior, or is it somebody more junior? And you will get different outputs. If you have somebody very senior who can actually shape the discussion and take decisions on location, then you will get different outputs than when you have somebody saying, I will have to report all these points back internally and I will get back to you. Then I doubt you will have an effective outcome.
Indeed. Janina, you do work across various jurisdictions. What would be best practices for you if you were to combine them all?
It's hard to find a solution that fits all because markets are different, they have different regulations that have different problems and concerns they are tackling at the moment. But I think best practices is like Charles mentioned, transparency between the regulator, the trading association, and operators. While regulators know what to do in theory, they know where they want to go. I think it's important that they can do that in practice, because sometimes they need technical implementation, they need to take into consideration how to implement different approaches, and if they just have the theoretical base, it will be hard to put this in practice. But if you ask the trading association or the operators and have a dialogue with them, this is always very helpful. And on major topics, I think that not only trade associations should be consulted, but also operators that are not in trade association, being them small or large operators, because depending on the size of the operator, some provisions, some implementation may be harder or easier for them to make. So it's important for the regulator to know that. And also, what I've noticed that is very important is the post factum. You have the legislation, you implement it, but then you have to see if it works indeed. So it's very helpful for regulators to get the feedback from the market to understand, okay, this is working, this is not working, and what can be done better, because solution you can always find. And of course, to address matters, tax matters, technical matters with, like my colleague said, with professionals, because you cannot cover every subject that it's in the gambling industry. So you need persons that know exactly what they are doing in order to get to a better regulation. And what I've noticed is that markets where regulators consult with operators and trade association are more stable, and they have higher standards because they do things faster because of transparency and their way of working, and they can update their standards very quickly, so they can progress a lot easier than the markets when the communication is not that strong.
It's very nice to hear you speaking, because you do represent an operator who, in the markets that you operate in, you're quite dominant. So I'm glad to see that you foster fair competition and encourage the regulators to engage not just with the big ones, but also with the smaller operators. Simon, you do come from a jurisdiction where legislation is somewhat different than the rest of Europe. So maybe you could tell us how is the Swiss market nowadays, and whether there is more room for market liberalization or this model is here to stay. Probably first explain a bit for our audience.
First I should mention why you refer to different, right? You of course refer to the fact that online gambling, operating online gambling is linked to a domestic entity, so in most cases a local casino. But that also at the same time means that international actors can cooperate with these local casinos. As per your question whether it's going to stay, there's currently an evaluation going on of the law in Switzerland, which will take quite a while. As most things in Switzerland, things are slow but stable, and I will come also to the good aspects about this. And we will see about the outcome of this in probably 1 year's time. Now it's the time for input. Now, I remember well when the law was entering into effect in 2019, quite a few international players were not amused by the fact that there is no independent online licenses. However, when you took the effort to actually look closer over these years now, you can realize something interesting, that the market has been very stable and the regulation has been very stable. And some of these doubtful measures that have been taken throughout Europe, in particular gambling, advertising restrictions and advertising prohibitions, have simply not happened in Switzerland. Now you might wonder why. I mentioned that the Swiss system is slow, so that can also be for the good. It doesn't jump at every new train and takes a more long-term perspective. And also the laws do not change just because there is a new government due to the political system. So interestingly, we haven't seen these advertising bans in Switzerland. It's just linked still to, let's say, basic consumer protection ideas such as advertise honestly and not misleading. And I think that is really interesting to see. Maybe another point how the local industry has reacted in recent times. We see that in other countries, and I may mention the Netherlands, there has been a massive backlash towards the industry, a political mood that has completely changed from positive within 1 or 2 years to very averse towards the industry from politics. Maybe there has been a lack of self-limitation, consideration that self-limitation may be important, self-regulation by the industry. So to illustrate, in Switzerland, the Casino Association has taken proactive measures that, for instance, include a commitment of all operators to abstain from advertising before 10 p.m. on TV, and to include responsible gambling messages, to not target youth. All these things that I've mentioned are not in the law. There's no legal requirement to do it. But it is a self-limitation that has proven, in my view, positive towards politics.
Well, you are probably an example where proactivity worked. In the other parts of Europe, seems like we abused the lack of rigorous enforcement, and now we are where we are. The reverse is coming, yeah. Charles, how can the private sector support regulators so that you, in turn, support the private sector, like a help me, help you situation?
I would go back again to the topic of collaboration. I think it's important to have this open dialogue with the operator so that we understand what their pain points are, how we could help them, and at the same time help us to pass on the message to the legislator, to the political sphere. I think having this conversation is very important. Obviously, it also depends on the jurisdiction and how the jurisdiction, how governments, to put it bluntly, view the gaming sector. In Malta, we are blessed, I would say, that the gaming sector is highly regarded. Obviously, it doesn't come without hard work. We work very hard in order to sustain and maintain the high reputation that we enjoy. But the gaming sector is considered as one of the important pillars. So from that aspect, we don't have that problem. Yet we do advocate for effective collaboration between all stakeholders, be it the operators, service providers, the MGA, regulators, etc., in order to come together to reach the best possible outcome for the industry.
I don't know if there are any questions from the audience, but if not, I would like to ask each of you, which is the biggest challenge in the jurisdictions that you represent that you are facing in 2025, in your opinion? Open question to either of you.
Sure, I'll take that up. So we're undergoing many regulatory challenges because right now there is parliamentary discussions of the amendment of the gambling law, and there's going to probably be a lot of impact if finally approved, because they're not only amending the law to introduce new changes to the advertisement regulation, but also to introduce more controls over gaming providers that we don't have up to now. So gaming providers. There's also a lot of regulation undergoing in regards to problem gambling control. We have a very innovative algorithm that is now being, allegations have been submitted and they are being studied. It's an algorithm that is going to be mandatory for all the operators. So it's yet to be seen how that is going to technologically be implemented, and it's going to be quite complex. We are also undergoing other secondary regulations, so there's a lot of challenges in that sense. There is a lot of regulatory proactiveness by our regulator, so 2026 is going to be quite promising.
I believe in Switzerland it's clear it's the blocking of players. There are too many players getting banned, blocked, and I will explain why I say too many. I believe for a while in the capital there has been the perception the more players are blocked, the more we protect people against gambling addiction. But what has happened is actually the opposite. Many players get blocked simply for the mere fact of not submitting their financial data on time to the operator. And then the compliance department has an obligation to block them. And data suggests from the operators that the majority of these players don't have a gambling addiction issue, but simply didn't react on time or didn't submit sufficient documentation. And they are blocked all over the country with all operators, and since recently this year, even also in Liechtenstein. So I believe that issue has to be addressed.
I think another challenge is, from the perspective of the operator, the implementation of different provisions, of different technical implementation, because it also requires technical input from the teams. it takes time. So the updates of the legislation are very fast. At the same time, the time that we have in order to apply these and comply with them is very short. So we always must make sure that nothing escapes us, because it's always the little details that exactly in the end we get there and we are like, okay, but we have this, how are we solving this? Because this will be an issue if not. So yeah, we must pay very much attention to implementing what the regulator asks us to.
I will keep it short. I would say standardization probably, or the lack of standardization. I think that is one of the key issues that the industry is facing, because jurisdictions have different requirements, and it's a toll on the operators.
Well, I would conclude from today's session that the industry has two choices: survive the regulation or shape the regulation. So it's trust, collaboration, transparency, always, I guess. Well, thank you very much. It was a very interesting session. I hope the audience enjoyed it as much as I did.
Thank you so much.